You've spelunked into the Matt Cave. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, obviously, I'm going to talk football. BYU's win against Iowa State, one that I wasn't actually expecting to happen. And then the first half happened, and I was even more expecting it to not happen. But I'll talk about them. I'll talk about Utah State falling to New Mexico and something that I did expect to happen. And then Utah's game against Colorado. So I was expecting a Utah win. I wasn't expecting that. I don't think anybody was outside of the Utah coaching staff. But I'll talk about those. I'll also talk about the Utah Mammoth and why they are the most exciting team in the NHL to watch, bar none, hands down. And, yeah, I guess I'll talk a little bit about the Jazz. But, yeah, I'll only be a couple minutes, but, yeah, it's the Jazz. But. All right, but thank you all so much for being here. As always, like, comment, subscribe, thumbs up, wherever it is, however you listen. Helps me out a ton. And, yeah, that's basically all I have for you for the intro. Follow me on the socials, I guess. Facebook, The Matt Cave Podcast, Instagram, The Matt Cave Podcast. And you can also listen to me anywhere you listen to your podcasts. So that's pretty cool too, huh? And then the weekly challenge to you, my dear Spelunker, share this with one person, just one, that you think might enjoy the program. Or blast me on your social medias. I like that too. Huge shout out to Corey Tanner for his comment this week. I've been having a very rough week on the personal side of things. Very rough. And his comment this past week just buoyed up my spirits and helped charge me with just good vibes that I needed. So thank you, Corey. Corey Tanner, great guy, and one of the original Spelunkers as well. He's been with me throughout almost all of this. So I wanted to shout you out for your comment. It was lovely, and thank you so much for saying it. As well as my two usual awesome Spelunkers, Angela Hammond and Gifford Pete. Thank you both. You both are awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. I love you both. And Angela, if Quench It wasn't in Lehigh, I would probably visit you almost every day. So maybe I could get a job and it'll be down there and I can make that trip every day. We'll see what happens. But that's basically everything to start out with. Let's dive into things, and let's start with the Utah Jazz. So I'll start there. The Jazz are 1-1 to start the season. They blew out the Clippers to start the season, 129-108, and then they lost a nail-biter to the Sacramento Kings in Sacramento, 105-104. Their next game is Monday night, October 27th, against the Phoenix Suns, who only have Devin Booker left after they tried to do a Big Four with Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. That really didn't work. And so now they are kind of a bunch of bits and pieces and Devin Booker. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if the Jazz are better than the retooling Phoenix Suns. But a couple of things I want to point out. Obviously, we're only 2 games into the season. The Clippers are a roster of old and aging men in Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Chris Paul, and Bradley Beal. So it's not like you just beat a NBA Finals contender. So keep that in mind. I don't think the Clippers are going to be terribly great this year. I think they're a play-in team at best. So congrats on the win. It surprised me, but that was what happens when a perfect game happens. It's a perfect storm where Keontae George doesn't really turn the ball over. Walker Kessler somehow draining three-pointers. And the drive and kick game is going very well. And then the other team is slow and old, and the majority of them don't want to play defense. That's what happened in the Clippers game. In the Kings game, I think the Kings are a better barometer for the Jazz as far as what is going to happen for them for this season. So maybe the Jazz will win more than 20 games this year. Maybe. But I do know they want to keep their lottery protected, or their top 5 lottery protected pick going into this draft, so they don't have to surrender it to Oklahoma City. So that is definitely something to keep in your mind as well. I know what Austin H said. I know what he is saying, but the Jazz want to keep that pick. All right, so that's basically everything I have to say about the Jazz. Also, the new uniforms, pretty cool. I definitely like them more than that stupid desert one or the highlighter yellow. They're much better this year than they have been recently. But, I mean, you can't do worse, right? You can't do worse than what they had. Those were among the worst jerseys I think I've ever seen in my life. Anywho, let's move on to the Utah Mammoth. I love this team. If you didn't hear it in my voice last week, I'll repeat it again. I love this team. They are the most exciting team in the NHL. If you don't believe me, look at how they have started their past 2 games. Logan Cooley scored a natural hat trick. And for those of you who aren't Chunga or Chandler, a natural hat trick is when you score 3 consecutive goals for your team. That means nobody scored a goal in between you scoring your 3. Logan Cooley did that within the first 10 minutes of the opening period of the game against St. Louis. He followed that up in the next game against Minnesota by almost doing it again. He had 2 goals to start the game. An awesome hand-eye coordination poke into the goal from the air, bat in, that he just said, I just wanted to put it on net. I didn't think it was going to go in. I didn't even think I really hit it. And then the other one was just pure grit and determination up in front of the goalie, just whacking away, trying to get the puck into the net when Philip Gustafsson, the goalkeeper for Minnesota, couldn't get his glove on the puck. So there's that. And then you have Nick Schmaltz, who scored a hat trick at home when his grandpa was there. And the 2 games that Nick Schmaltz's grandpa has seen in person of Nick, he scored hat tricks. So Ryan Smith, I think you need to give that man season tickets. Just, comp him on the house. And Clayton Keller is driving everything. He's scoring goals. He's also getting tons of assists. Mikhail Sergachev is just a stately, cool, calm presence in the back line that will stick up for his teammates. Liam O'Brien, Spicy Tuna, one of my favorite players in the NHL, and Brandon Tanev, Turbo Tanev, who is becoming one of my favorite players in the NHL, are fantastic on that bottom line, the energy, grit, and grind line. Lawson Krause scored his first goal this season. I want him to get at least 20 this year. And then Veggie. Veggie has the most wins of any goalkeeper in the NHL as of me recording this episode. I'm recording it before the Mammoth play against Winnipeg, but I don't anticipate Veggie playing in that game because you don't really play your goalies in back-to-back nights unless it's the end of last season and Utah really only had 1 goalie. So there you go. But this team is the most exciting in the NHL. They are fast. They are quick to get on the rush. They can counter-rush excellently. Their poke checks are insane. Going from Mikhail Sergachev to the rookie Dmitry Simashev, it's incredible what they could do with the puck, and they are able to corral the stars of other teams. Nathan McKinnon is a prime example in that home game, and then again against Jordan Kyrou of the St. Louis Blues, and then one more time for the richest man in the NHL, Kirill Kaprizov, they shut him down as well. So this team is great defensively. They are among the best 5 teams in the NHL when it comes to shots against. And so the only thing that I want to see improve on this team is a penalty kill, which they did a fantastic job in the final 3 minutes against the Wild. They had a penalty in the last 3 minutes there. It was a garbage penalty against Barrett Hayton, but whatever, it is what it is. And so they went down to 4 men on the penalty kill. And because of the state of the game, Dallas was able to pull their goalie, so it was 6-on-4 hockey. And Utah didn't allow a goal in. Last year, they would have allowed a goal. Whether it was a goaltending mistake by Vejmelka or it was a lapse in concentration on the penalty kill, they would have allowed a goal. It wouldn't have changed the outcome of the game, though, because Utah was up 5-2 at that point. But that's a maturity thing that the Mammoth did in that game. They stood up when things could have gone really bad. Now, the other things I want to see improve on this team are bottom 6 scoring. Lawson Krause did get a goal. That was really cool. But he's had a couple of breakaway chances that he just didn't slot home that I would love to see him do so. And then just any sort of goal production from the Kevin Stenlund, Liam O'Brien, Brandon Tanev line. Spicy Tuna did get his first goal at home. It was awesome. It was a hustle play. It forced a turnover from the goalkeeper because he wasn't expecting pressure, and he got the puck and he slotted it home. That was an amazing goal at home. Loved it. The Delta Center exploded when that happened, and it was his first goal in a Utah jersey, whether it was the hockey club or Mammoth. But I'd like to see more production from that line, and then just more shots on goal from the defensemen. Nate Schmidt and Ian Cole are doing a good job. Sergachev is just so cerebral and so smart that he can see the next pass before he gets the puck. Personally, I would like to see him put it on goal, because when he puts it on goal, good things happen. The goalie rarely is able to catch and freeze the puck when Sergei is shooting it. It usually bounces in front and all heck breaks loose, and a goal usually pops in. So I'd like to see more from him. And then Dmitry Simashev, rookies are going to rookie. He has made a few mistakes that has put the odd man rush against Utah. Veggie has done a good job cleaning most of those up, but especially on the power play or when on the penalty kill, and when the penalty kill is about to end, Dmitry Simashev is finding himself too far up ice, and he's leaving his defense pair in a pickle. Whether it's Nate Schmidt, Ian Cole, Mikhail Sergachev, Olli Mata, or John Marino, that's happening a lot. And so I would like to see him be just a little bit less aggressive on the forecheck when that happens. But overall, this team 7-2, tops in the Western Conference as of me recording this. No overtime losses, and they're just so much fun. If you haven't caught a game, please try your best to find some way to watch it. Utah 16, Mammoth Plus. Do not buy SEG Plus or Jazz Plus. I beg of you. They don't deserve that money for that team. But for the Mammoth Plus, definitely worth your time. The broadcast crew for the Mammoth Plus, Matt McConnell, Dom Moore, fantastic. Nick Olczyk is doing a better job than I was expecting in explaining the game of hockey to the new market. Just the person in studio with Nick Olczyk just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know why. She just does. I don't know why. But the rest of the crew is fantastic. So they put on a great show. It's definitely worth your time and money. So that's, I kind of rambled there a little bit about the Mammoth, but I am just that much excited about this team. And not only for the present, but for the future. Obviously, Dylan Gunther, JJ Peterka, and Logan Cooley are only going to get better. Clayton Keller is still in his prime. He's going to still be in his prime for the next 4 years. Nick Schmaltz is earning a next contract with the Mammoth, and if the Mammoth can't afford him, that's going to be a huge loss. And then you have the rising salary cap next year, calendar year, and they have assets to be able to go and make a big splash, whether it's at the trade deadline or the Olympic break this year or in the offseason next year. They're going to know what they need to do and who they need to go get. Because let's not forget, Connor McDavid only signed a 2-year extension. Obviously, the 2-year extension kicks in next year. But if the Oilers do not make the Stanley Cup Finals or even the Western Conference Finals, will he want to move? Maybe. Austin Matthews is getting tired of the Toronto market. He's getting tired of the flack he's getting from those fans. And he could move to an American team. He is from Arizona. So he could come to Utah, and he would be right next to home. So there are some huge names that could bounce available, and then there's bigger ones for, puck heads that know. Artemi Panarin, maybe from the Rangers. Zibanejad from the Rangers is somebody I talked about last year. I still want him on the team. I love his game, and it helps that he's Swedish, too. And there's just a bunch of players out there that the Mammoth could make a hockey trade to go get, and it would be so awesome. So this team on the up and up. Right now, they are the most exciting team in the NHL. They are the fastest team in the NHL. They get up the ice so fast. And in the past few games, they have jumped on teams before those teams have been able to get used to playing against the Mammoth. And so they've jumped out to huge early leads. 4-0 against the Blues. 3-0 against the Wild, where it would have taken a monumental collapse for the Mammoth to lose. They almost did against the Blues, but they were more mature against the Wild. And I just can't wait to see where this team ends up at the end of this season. My prediction was Stanley Cup playoffs. If they keep performing like they're performing right now, they could be a top seed in the Stanley Cup playoffs, not just a wild card seed. So that's enough about the Mammoth. I love Tusky too. As of me recording this episode, the Mammoth are undefeated since revealing Tusky. So that's pretty neat. And I'm going to move on now. So let's move on to Utah State against New Mexico. They played down in New Mexico, and Utah State looked horrible. They just looked terrible. They didn't fumble the ball. There was only one interception from Bryson Barnes, but Bryson Barnes was 13 for 23. Utah State only did 48 plays of offense compared to New Mexico's 64. That's never a winning formula. And they just couldn't get pressure on the New Mexico quarterback when he did drop back to pass. Jack Lane, it always felt like he had all day to throw the ball. And so that felt like a a Bronco Mendenhall fueled disaster because Bronco Mendenhall is usually allergic to blitzing. Usually. And that's rearing its ugly head with these losses. So Utah State moving forward definitely only has one game left on their schedule that I believe they can win outright, and that's against Nevada. Otherwise, every other game, they are going to be an underdog, and I do not see bowl eligibility in their future like I thought I might have last week. It's not looking good up in Logan for the remainder of the schedule. That being said, Utah State's offense has shown that it can just pop off at any given moment against any given opponent. But again, it seems like UNLV, Boise State both have designs on the Mountain West Championship. Utah State's now basically knocked out of it. I don't see it. I don't see it. So it was a nice start to the season for the Aggies. Moving forward, though, I don't see much happiness in your future, except for maybe against Nevada. Maybe. But that game was just a rough watch all the way around. New Mexico was up 26-7 at the half, and then there was 2 touchdowns exchanged in the fourth quarter, and that's where we go. So Utah State falls to New Mexico in New Mexico 33-14. And don't look now, but the Lobos might be bowl eligible this year. They are one win away from it, so that's pretty wild too. All right, let's move on to BYU against Iowa State. A big game, the final college football game of the day on Fox nationally. It was a nationally televised game. BYU, number 11 ranked, undefeated, heading into Ames, Iowa, against an Iowa State school that they have never beaten in football. They were 0-5 going into the game. A lot of demons to exercise, and early on, it did not look good for the Cougars. BYU was down 24-17 at the half. That score was a little bit closer than it felt. It should have been 24-10, but BYU's defense caused turnovers. They caused havoc late in the first half, and it was kind of a design on things to come. Jay Hill, I want to call out 3 things from this game. First, the coordinators. First, Jay Hill did a masterful job of pivoting. He learned what Iowa State wanted to do in the first 2 quarters, in the first quarter and a half, really. And then he changed his play calling to match what Iowa State was doing, and Iowa State didn't really have an answer. Iowa State did break out a couple of really big runs, but once BYU forced them and Iowa State forced themselves into a second and long, third and long sort of thing, the coverage designs by Jay Hill were great at confusing Rocco Becht, and the blitz was getting home. And they did all of this without their starting middle linebacker, Ciala Acera. That's fantastic. Now, Max Alford, who came in for him, boy, you can see why he wasn't a starter. He kept getting sucked into blocks that he did not need to get into. And then he was plugging the same gap as another linebacker or a safety. And so there was a lot of times where Max Alford just got stuck in the wrong spot, or he didn't hold the edge appropriately because he engaged with the offensive lineman when he didn't need to. He could have kept drifting along and made a tackle on the edge. So there was some coachable moments, as head coach Satake likes to call them, coachable moments for the defense. The offense, Aaron Roderick, I have been much malaised about him in his tenure at BYU. What he's doing with Bear Bachmeier is genius. It is genius. He is doing what I said the Jets should have done with Zach Wilson a couple of years ago. He is keeping it simple for the quarterback to read the defense. The route concepts are not option routes, so you don't have to be on the same page as your wide receiver in reading the defense. It's not a 3 or 4 option route for Chase Roberts to go out, read the defense. I'm going to do an out, a go, a post, or an in, or I'm just going to do a curl and stay. Those aren't in the playbook. It's my guys are running a post and an in, and then my tight end's going to leak out into the flat, or my back that is in for protection. They're going to leak out into the flat if I need them. If that stuff isn't there, that is 3 reads. I'm going to take off and go. That is quick. That's a quick read, and he has the talent to slot the ball in there. So he's keeping the offense simple. Now, I do want to call out that his play calls are way too long. You do not need to have play calls that long, especially with a true freshman quarterback. That is why BYU's hurry-up offense, fourth quarter, 2-minute, whatever you want to call it, offense, struggles. It's because the play calls are too long. Whether it's coming in through the communication to the quarterback and then the quarterback getting it out to the offense, or it's just the quarterback needing to remember all of these different play calls with that language, it's too much. So that's something he could do better for Bear Bachmeier. But overall, the returns speak for themselves. And what I was really impressed with, so that's the first two things I was impressed with, the two coordinators changing it up on the fly, Aaron Roderick having a plan for if and when LJ Martin got hurt, which he did against Iowa State early in the game. He had a plan. It wasn't, crap, what do I do? Like Utah fans have seen when their quarterback goes down or when a key player goes down. It's, all right, cool, we'll throw out that playbook. I've got this one ready to go. And it's something they have practiced. Awesome. Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, even Tiger Bachmeier, fantastic. Parker Kingston still has a case of the dropsies. He had 3 balls he should have caught. Other than that, though, fantastic game. Didn't fumble either. That was a big bugaboo early in the season. Chase Roberts is a Sunday player. He just is. He's a faster and taller version of Puka Nacua without as much toughness over the middle. And that's just because Chase Roberts is built physically different than Puka. But if you put the ball near Chase Roberts, odds are 8 out of 10 times he's going to make the catch. 9 out of 10 times nobody's going to make the catch. And 10 out of 10 times something's going to happen. You like that analysis there? I did. So I was really impressed with the coordinators, how they changed it up, how they were able to adapt on the fly. Past BYU teams would not have been able to do that and haven't been able to do that. The third one, Bear Bachmeier. There's a lot of glaze going on for Bear Bachmeier. In the national media, local media, you name it. I have been reticent to heap praise on the kid. This game showed me what Bear Bachmeier can be. And this was not an offense of dink and dunk. It was not a 3-yard out to a tight end. We're just going to move the balls. We're going to matriculate the ball down the field. Hank Schramm, anyone? And so what it is it's a team and an offense where the ball's going deep. And it is going deep. There are deep ins. So the offensive line, even in max protect, is doing a wonderful job. By the way, here's your tip for the day if you want to learn something. Max protect is when you keep your tight end and a running back in for pass protection to give your quarterback more time, which usually means only 2 guys are out on the route. So that's Parker Kingston and Chase Roberts or Tiger Bachmeier, any combination of the 3. And then then you have your tight end and your running back. If nobody's blitzing, if there's nobody for you to pick up, you leak out into the flat as an emergency option for your quarterback. That's max protection. So even in max protect, Bear Bachmeier and his receivers are finding open gaps in the secondary. Now, to not overglaze, Iowa State has been without their 2 all Big 12 cornerbacks for the majority of this season, and their backups just aren't up to snuff. They're true freshmen, making true freshman mistakes, and the defense just isn't able to adapt to overcome that. So that helped, but you still have to take advantage of that, right? You still have to be able to diagnose that and execute the play call. And Bear Bachmeier did that. He did that against Iowa State. He was not a liability like Jake Retzlaff was last year throwing the ball. He's not forcing it into bad windows, which blows my mind because a true freshman is going to do that. But Bear isn't. So this is nuts. An 18-year-old kid out there doing what he's doing and the size that he is, he's able to absorb the punishment. He was the leading rusher for BYU because Preston Rex is a converted cornerback. That's where the BYU running back room is. After in the offseason when Kalani Sitake was saying this is the deepest running back room I think I've ever seen, where are they outside of LJ Martin? And so that converted cornerback, and then Enoch Nahine is playing hurt. So that's why he's not seeing a lot of carries. And Sione Moa is out injured as well. So there is no running game. Hopefully the injury to LJ Martin is nothing overtly serious. It was serious enough to knock him out of the game. Hopefully over the bye week, there is enough time for him to heal up for the humongous game in Lubbock, Texas against Texas Tech. Humongous game. And if BYU wins that one and they come out with limited injuries, I think they could run the table. I honestly do, because they're not going to lose to South Florida at home. The only other games I see on there, TCU and Cincinnati. The only one that's even slightly scary there is at Cincinnati. I don't see TCU beating BYU in Provo. I definitely don't see South Florida beating BYU in Provo. So there's 2 games left that are toss-ups. Texas Tech and Cincinnati. Those are both road games. We'll have to see what happens there, but I've been very impressed with Bear Bachmeier. I did not see this coming. It was the right call to go with the kid. I said go with the kid at the start of the season and just live with the mistakes. There are very few mistakes from Bear Bachmeier right now. And now that I've put this glaze on him and I've praised him, the wheels are going to come off. Cast or curse or whatever it is. But that's what I saw there. Great stuff out of BYU. Hopefully Scalley Isera can come back as well. Get that linebacking core up to full strength before Texas Tech. And we'll see what happens in Lubbock in 2 weeks. All right, let's move it on to Utah. Wow, what happened? 43-0 at the half. Utah gave up negative yards on defense. So technically, Utah's defense gained yards. And the much vaunted, the much talked about Colorado offense of Caden Salter and Omarion Miller, Sincere Brown, they did nothing. Nothing. Kyle Whittingham put the fear of something into his team to come out and perform against Colorado, and boy, howdy did they. This is the worst loss, one of the worst losses in Colorado program history, and it's the worst loss of the Deion Sanders era. And you all know I love Coach Prime, but in this one, it did not look like he had his team ready for the storm that was coming their way. Rice-Eccles Stadium at night is like Lavelle Edwards Stadium at night. It was Lavelle Edwards Stadium at night before the LES was what it is now. It's just a different beast. It's a different animal. The noise. And it feels like everybody is on top of you in the nighttime because you can't really see everything. And so it just feels like the noise is coming down from the heavens on top of you. And so the coordinators for the Colorado program had zero answers for anything Utah was doing. Anything. Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham put together a masterful plan to handle not just Caden Salter, but the running game, special teams, and then offense coordinator, I almost called him John Beck, Jason Beck, had a great plan for when his star was out. Now, Bird Ficklin ran the ball great. He was a true freshman as well, and he didn't make true freshman mistakes. He did not throw any interceptions. He did not fumble the ball to lose the ball. He fumbled it once, but they didn't lose it. This team is frustrating because this is who they can be, right? This is who I thought they would be coming into the season. You dominate the line of scrimmage with the most talented offensive line Kyle Whittingham has ever seen. His words. You run the ball, you run over the opponent, and then you just blitz and confuse the ever-living goodness out of the opposing quarterback, and you just enjoy the fruits of your labor. Blowout wins over Colorado, UCLA. UCLA beat Penn State and got James Franklin fired. They made Nico Iamaleava look like a fool. So this team, I don't know what's happening in the bigger games. Texas Tech, they came out flat. Texas Tech took advantage of it and then just eventually ran over Utah. BYU out-muscled them. BYU looked like they were more ready for the Holy War for the first time in I don't know how long. Probably since before Kyle Whittingham. And in the other games, they've looked like world beaters. They've looked like the best team in the Big 12. So consistency is an issue here. I don't know if it's because of the new NIL stuff, transfer portal, anything like that, but I bet a lot of those Utah fans that were calling for Kyle Whittingham to retire or get fired, you need to feel really stupid. You need to feel stupid and wrong because that's the wrong call. This is a Kyle Whittingham team. This is what Utah can do. They need some help to get into the Big 12 title, as was talked about ad nauseum on the telecast. But they need some help to get there. The Big 12 is a lot like the Pac-12. There's going to be fratricide all over the place. So it is still incredibly possible that we will see a BYU-Utah Big 12 title game, which is how it should be. But I don't think that's going to happen. But crazier, wackier things have happened, Going into these games for BYU and Utah, I thought both of them were going to lose because of the drop-off after a high-energy, huge hitting, bruising, emotionally draining Holy War both teams were going to lose like they did last year. In the first half for BYU, it looked like that was going to happen. They turned it around. They got momentum towards the end of that first half, and then they just kind of drove from there. Utah didn't have any sort of drop-off. Now, moving forward, obviously, BYU has a bye week next week. Utah next week has a game against Cincinnati, and Utah can be big bros for BYU and knocking Cincinnati out of the ranks of the unbeaten in the conference. Do a huge favor, not just for BYU, but for themselves too. Utah needs to win this game to stay alive. It is a must win. And guess what? It's at night. It's at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Scott Satterfield and his quarterback and his crew have never seen anything like it. And they get to see it this coming week. So, huge game for Utah coming up this week. A huge game for BYU the week after. Couple of exciting weeks for college football in the state of Utah coming up here. And I'm very excited to see it. So that's the episode this week, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. If you like this episode, remember to like, comment, subscribe, follow wherever it is, however you listen. Share the program with one person you think might like it. And I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave. And oh, by the way, I will be at the Radio Ronin meetup this coming Saturday. If you want to see me in the flesh and say hi, come on down.